You've got ideas, you've got ambition, you've got no time, or so you think. I'm Marissa Lonick, and I help busy moms with big dreams and no time. Join me each week as I dive into time management strategies, goal setting and achieving framework, and inspiring guests who are juggling mom life, work life, fill in the blank life. Dreams don't work unless you do, and just because you're a mom doesn't mean you can't still make it happen, whatever it means to you. Welcome to the Mama Work It podcast. Hello, mamas, and welcome back to another episode of the Mama Work It podcast. You guys, I am seriously fangirling this week. Before I introduce my guest, I want you to imagine you've just read the most incredible book ever. This was me last summer. As I would run around my neighborhood listening to podcasts and books and reggaeton jams from my college days, one of those books was Enough by Elizabeth Lyons, an author I didn't know until reading that book and felt like I should be best friends with after reading that book. Because Liz's book, yes, I call her Liz, was basically the divine intervention I needed to hear at that time, and because she seemed so freaking cool, I decided to message her. And guess what happened next? We started chatting, and she proved me right about how cool she really is. Well, I am here today with Liz, and I couldn't be more excited. Liz is a 5 times best-selling author, the publisher at Finn-Phyllis Press, and a mom of 5. She's also obsessed with backstories, words, coffee, incessant laughter, home renovation, and generally making the impossible possible. If you're into being inspired while also laughing hysterically along the way, you are tuning into the right episode. Liz, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, I think we are going to be best friends. That was amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. All right. All right. Well, first things first, I know a lot about you after reading the book, but tell our listeners your story. Tell us a quick summary of who you are and how you became a 5 times best-selling author.
God, I don't know who I am. I'm still trying to figure out who I am on the daily, right? Honestly, I think from everything that I've done and gone through, my greatest message is just put one foot in front of the other and let it take you where it takes you. Because Marissa, if you had told me 10 years ago, or I think I published my first book 18 now years ago, that this is where my life would have taken me, I'd tell you were insane. And to be clear, when I say where my life would have taken me, I'm not sitting here in like a golden chalet. I mean, I threw my back out yesterday. I had all kinds of issues. Like that's the thing that I love most. And that's why I love backstories, is because I love to learn about the different strategies that quote unquote regular people, because I've never had, when I had 4 kids under the age of 5, I didn't have a nanny. I would have loved, if you had given me a nanny, I would have taken one. So that's not me saying, I mean, I would have taken it, but I just didn't have it. And we didn't have family that lived nearby, none of that. So I had to just make it work. And I did have certain luxuries that other people don't have. And I'm very aware of that. Meaning at the time I had a husband, we're no longer married, but we're great friends. So that's a book in and of itself, because it's like, how did you do that? But, I had a husband at the time who worked and allowed me to stay home and be a full-time mom. So that was a great thing. But I honestly just kept throwing things against the wall and saying, do I like this or do I not like this? And I never felt the need to hold myself to anything for any longer than it made sense to. And I think sometimes I held on to things for too long, and sometimes I gave up on things too easily. And I think actually I gave up on a few things before I should have, in hindsight. And sometimes I look back and think, man, what if I had stuck with that? Like, what if I had stuck with running? Maybe I could run to more than the stop sign. I can't even run to the stop. I'm like, absolutely not. But, where would I be if I had started training for a marathon 20 years ago? Maybe I'd be a triathlete. I can't imagine such a thing, but maybe that would have come to fruition. In the author world, especially with fiction writers, there are two categories, plotters and pantsers. Those are kind of well known. And so lots of times I do write fiction. I just haven't published fiction yet. But lots of times when authors are interviewed, one of the questions is, are you a plotter or a pantser? And I've never been asked that question because I've never published fiction yet. But when I thought about it myself, I thought, oh my God, like I am 100% a pantser, not only as a fiction writer, but in life. I don't have a plan. I've never written a business plan. I don't forecast things. I don't do, it's just, so the very long-winded answer to your question is I've just gotten there one choice at a time.
Yeah. I mean, that's all you can do, essentially. Even when you are a planner, even when you think ahead, you just go one step at a time. That's it.
There are a lot of people who have processes, right? I have a great author, Frank Lopes, who has a phenomenal book called The 7-Minute Setup, which is actually the process that I have followed for the longest and the most diligently and the most consistently about setting up your goals and then sort of reverse engineering them in his own unique way. I'm a fan of that. I'm a big believer, and I talk about this in Enough, that you've got to know the why, the what, and the how. You've got to figure those things out. It doesn't have to be 10 years in the future. What is the why, the what, and the how going to be? But it does have to be like right now, what are those things with all of the parameters that are in my life? I have 5 kids, but things have changed. 3 of them are out of the house. 2 of them are still, that's very different from having 5 kids under the age of 7 in my home. So what is the why, the what, and the how now? And then there's the fourth component for me, which I had such a hard time with, Marissa, for years, which is the surrender and the just kind of letting it go. And it's difficult for each person, I think, to find that sweet spot in the balance between the execution and the surrender. Because you can't just put together a what, why, and how, and then think that you're just going to open your front door and there's going to be, as I say, like a unicorn with a tiara sitting there. You have to do the action. If you want to talk about, and I don't really, but the law of attraction, it's the word is, it's attract and action. Like the two things go together. There is a place, however, where you have to recognize that there are things working on your behalf. Whether you want to recognize it and acknowledge it or not, there are things working on your behalf that you aren't aware of. And if you don't slow down long enough for those things to catch up to you or for you to see those things or acknowledge those things, you'll just miss out on them. So I was watching yesterday, actually, a phenomenal lecture with Gary Zukav. He was in the Mind Valley Summit, which was a big thing put on by Mind Valley, which is run by Vishen Lakhiani, and it's absolutely remarkable. But one of the things that Gary said that was so insightful to me was you can take the short road. All roads lead to the same place eventually, but the road can be short and fun, or it can be really long and really painful. And sometimes it is a choice. We all go through challenges. I've gone through my fair share, etc. But sometimes it's a choice. What are you going to make a challenge? What are you going to see as a challenge? What are you going to see as an opportunity? And that's where I've had the most fun over the last, 20 years, is learning, because I am not an optimistic person by nature. I am not a positive person by nature. I was voted biggest complainer my senior year in high school. For real, like I can prove it. It's in the yearbook. But
that's unbelievable to me, because I read that book and couldn't have felt more inspired by you. And I'm sure I'm not alone.
That makes my heart so happy. And thank you. And I mean, honestly, it's so cliche, but if I can do it, anybody could, because truly I was. I mean, it was like I wake up in the morning and think, well, there's a cloud in the sky. Like there it is, And now, and I wouldn't say I'm Pollyanna now by any stretch of the imagination. Like I've never wanted to go that far to the other side of the spectrum. I have worked very hard on getting to a place where I can say, well, this sucks. And what's the opportunity? Which I think is very different from this sucks, but what's the opportunity? Because things suck sometimes. I mean, let's be honest.
Oh, for real.
Things suck.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that. I love that mentality. And I agree because a lot of our listeners are moms with
Yep.
little kids at home trying to juggle a lot of things. And, some days just suck. And that's what it is. I mean, it's just life, right? Like every day, you're not going to feel like you're winning at everything every day. That's just impossible.
You're not going to feel like it most days. I believe. I mean, I used to do way back in the day when my twins were very little. I ran this kind of support group at our local hospital for moms of twins, and the constant I don't want to say complaint, but lament, I guess, from new moms of twins was I didn't get anything on my to-do list checked off today. And I'm like, I get it. My to-do list just keeps growing. The thing that I've been trying to do lately and that I encourage you all to do is at the end of the day, write down everything you did do. Like I made 6 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that I didn't intend to make because I didn't realize that the kid would throw it against a window or throw it out the window or step on it or think that was fun, whatever the case may be. When you start to take an accounting of the things you actually are doing, and that's why, I mean, really, if you talk to all the top coaches and entrepreneurs and however you want to define that, the most successful people, they're very aware of their wins.
Yes.
And even if you go to bed at night and you think like, what was one win today? I don't even need to put that suggestion out there. It's so cliche at this point. Everyone's saying it, but it's the
so
truth.
true.
That's why
It's
everyone's
so
saying
true.
it.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Like my win today is I dried my hair with a hair dryer.
That's a big deal.
I agree. I'm in Phoenix. It's 118 degrees out. That is a very big deal.
A very big deal. Even more so. Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I know I talk to a lot of moms who are creative, right? Creative individuals. I think most of us are. And I do know a lot of people who are interested in writing a book, but like have no idea where the hell to start. So you've been there. I've been there. What would you tell them? Should they start blogging? Should they start journaling? Should they sit down and just start writing a 50,000 word manuscript? Like, what's the first step?
Okay. So the first step is number one, not to use the word should. So, there are so many shoulds, like it's been said a million times, stop shoulding on yourself, right? Like there are a million shoulds. Well, you should start a blog, you should start a podcast, and they're all coming from outside. So it's totally normal and natural, by the way, to ask people for advice. Like, how do I get started? What should I do? I understand that's just a normal part of the thing. Where the discernment comes in is when people on the outside are telling you what you should do, pay attention to how that makes you feel. So when people said to me, well, you should start a blog, I felt like I wanted to throw up. Like I didn't want to write a blog or maintain a blog or run a blog or any of those things. When people originally said to me, you should start a podcast, I could feel, it just felt heavy. I didn't feel excited about it. Now I didn't learn to get excited. I got excited because I got clearer about what that podcast would be about. And that excited me. But just the general idea of, well, you should start a podcast. I was like, no. Writing a book is one of the most vulnerable and healing things that we can do. It's not the only one, but it's one of them. It is an effort that when you look at it, you're just looking at a blank page. It's so overwhelming. Like, how am I going to get from here to 70,000 words or whatever the case may be? The easiest thing for me to say to people would be just start. And for many years, that's what I did say. I said, get out a piece of paper, write one sentence at the top of the page. Now you're writing a book. Now it's no longer, I want to write a book. Now it's, I am writing a book. Before long, I realized how unhelpful that advice actually was. Because the truth of the matter is, you get that sentence down and then it sits there. There's just one sentence on the page for months and months and months because you are overthinking what should come next. How should I organize this? How can I be as good as fill in the blank? What if fill in the blank? All these things that come to pass. It really is the best way that I've found in working with hundreds of other people to get their book written is to pretend you're writing it just for you, which is actually the the easiest way, because you're not thinking that other people are going to read it, and you're not thinking about all the other people in terms of how should I write it for them. So how should I write it for my mother? How should I write it for cousin Susie, my next door neighbor, my best friend, the person I've never met, that the barista at Starbucks? You're not thinking that way. You're just thinking, what's my story? What do I want people to know? And you're also not thinking like, because I still do this today, and I've done this a few times. We're thinking, what will get attention? Like what's trending type thing, right? So I get questions a lot about, well, should I do it as a memoir? Should I do it as a set of rules or a set of steps or a set, like, what's the new thing? For a while, the thing was to have a swear word in your title. So that wasn't a thing, and then it was a thing, and now it's becoming not a thing again. That's a whole different conversation. But it's like, what do you gotta really, and this is why it's so vulnerable. You gotta really get into the core of you. Like, why do you want to put this thing out there? And if it's because you think you can make a quick $1 million, you will very quickly discover that that's not the case. Not the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's because what happens when people start to work on books that I find incredibly exciting, and I really enjoy working with my authors on this aspect of writing books, is they discover things about you. Will discover things about yourself that you didn't know, because you do have to go deep. You do have to go a few more layers deep than you think and that you probably want to, in order for that book to have an impact on someone else. We all talk at the surface level, on podcasts, and because we only have 30 to 60 minutes. So if we're writing an essay, a 500 word, 1,000, 15, 2,000 word essay, we're still staying way up here. When you write a book, you need to go way down here in order for your voice to resonate and to hit someone else here. And for people who are just listening, it's like in their core of their being. Look at it as like an adventure and fun, and get a great writing coach if you need one, because that can really help you unearth.
I couldn't agree more. I have to say, when I started writing and publishing work on my blog, I didn't tell a single person about it. And I think for me, that was exactly your advice, right? That was me writing for me. Even though I was writing it like pretending I had an audience, I was writing it for me. It was my own creative outlet. It was my own therapy in a way. And that really helped me get down to that core. And yes, absolutely. When you write a book, you get real deep. You get real deep in there. You learn a lot about yourself. I remember thinking the day after my book was published, I had such a vulnerability hangover.
Oh God, yes. Yes.
It was scary that people would actually read it, right?
Yes, right? Right? And another thing to keep in mind, and I'm sure you experience this, is just because you write something, even if it's on a public place like a blog, I mean, you can pull that down, right? Like, I understand that in the dark web, however that works, it's out there in perpetuity. But for the vast majority of people, we don't know how to access that. So you can pull it down. When you're writing this kind of stuff, it doesn't mean that it ultimately needs to make it into the final version of the book. Just because you unearth that you are codependent or were codependent or have an addiction to something, or whatever the case may be, doesn't mean you have to reveal that. And it doesn't declare to what degree you have to reveal it. If you do decide to reveal it, these are all very intentional, conscious decisions that authors need to make. And I find that to be a really fun, like, I love to watch people grow as people as they write the book, having nothing to do with anybody else, but certainly impacting and affecting the way that they interact with everyone else and with other people going forward, because it does change you. And I think that's a positive thing. One exercise I give people who are wanting to write a book and aren't sure where to start is write a letter to your reader. And I always say write to one person, which is super counterintuitive, because of course you want millions of people to read your book. The thing is, we're not all that different. So write to one person and write a letter to your ideal reader, this person who you see yourself writing to, and tell him or her what you know. So these are the things I know about you. And you can even give the person a name. So Sarah, these are the things dear Sarah, I know you feel blank, 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 and blank. I know you worry about. I know you are concerned about. Look, more often than not, you are writing to yourself from 5, 10 years ago. That's what ends up happening. But that is such a powerful way and you don't have to post that anywhere, I might add, but it's such a powerful way to get to the heart of how you want to impact one other person.
I love that exercise. That's such a great idea. And I can imagine it just opens up the floodgates of what you want to say.
It always opens up. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of superlatives, but it always opens up the floodgates. A lot of it comes down to asking questions in ways that people don't expect. So, like, I have a masterclass that's completely free that is 49 minutes long because I like doing things in very strange increments of number increments. Is that redundant to say number increment? I think it is. We'll disregard. um, and so, I ask 8 questions in that masterclass for people just to kind of get them started and just to get people to understand how it's not simple. I mean, it's not easy, but it's simple, right? Which is something else I talk about in Enough. Things aren't
Yes.
necessarily easy, but they're simple. They're simple in theory and concept. And writing a book is really simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. So sometimes it's about asking questions from a different angle. And that's where a writing coach can be super beneficial, or even just a writing partner, someone who you really trust to go through the details of your life and have them say, well, wait a minute, that's interesting. And I can't tell you how many times I've said to people, well, that's interesting. And they go, it is? Yeah. Yeah. Like, take me down that rabbit hole. What, you really want to know about that? I really, really do. Yes. Or I used to do this weird thing, and not me, but somebody will say, well, I'm sure I did too, but I used to do this weird thing when I was little. And I'll go, well, what was it? And they'll well, nobody wants to hear about that. It was weird. Like, I don't know anybody else who ever did it, but there is somebody else who did it. And when
we
they
want to know your weirdness. Tell us.
Yes. No, for real, because it's like fly. So I have my third book, You Cannot Be Serious, is the rules that help me. They're not hard and fast rules, but the rules that help me manage 5 kids as a co-parent, I'll call it. I won't say as a single mom, but as I didn't have a parent living in the house with me. I was running business, doing whatever I was doing. And one of the rules is fly your freak flag high, and because people stop hiding what makes you weird. I have a very, very good friend, Erin Thorburn, who writes children's books. She writes and illustrates children's books. And her tagline is, what makes you weird makes you wonderful. So fly it. Like,
yes.
That's how you find your people.
Yeah. And I think when you really step into that, you really start to feel the fulfillment on a whole nother level too.
I think it's so interesting. And that's really big time where Enough came from. As having read it, when I posted on Facebook, what do you think when you hear the word enough? I really was surprised by the answers. They were all toward the negative side of enough, which was like, I've had enough, no more, get me out of here, time to make a change. And that's why I wrote the book, because there's such this juxtaposition with the word. Like, is it I've had enough, or is it I have enough? And I think as women, specifically as moms, when is it enough? That's what the question is. And whenever you're saying, well, I'll be happy when, or I'll be okay when, you're putting this claim of enough outside of yourself. And I was doing it. That was my issue. I mean, which came to the head in Lululemon with the 80% off camo yoga pants I didn't want or need. But it was like, but they're only they're 80% off. How much do you really need? And so I think that when you start down this journey, even if you don't write a book, when you start down this journey of owning who you are, flaws and all, weirdness and all, you do genuinely start to fall more in love with yourself, not in an arrogant way at all. It's a place of acceptance. And that allows other people who are also in a place of acceptance to be attracted to you. Whether you want to get woo-woo about it or not, it just is what happens. You start to meet more and more and more like-minded people. You start to see the world differently. And it opens up a lot.
It does. And we can get woo-woo all you want here. I embrace
Yeah, I'm a
it.
little woo-woo. I mean,
Me
I
too.
wasn't always, by the way.
Me too.
Yeah,
Me
really?
too. Yes.
Yeah.
I have come a long way and I
Mhm.
like it.
I like it too. I mean, I used to be like, if I can't see it, it doesn't exist, And then I saw the remake of Miracle on 34th Street when the little girl walks up to the judge and hands him the dollar bill and circles "In God We Trust." And I'm not a terribly religious person. I'm much more of a, as they would say, a spiritual person. But nevertheless, I was like, well, wait a minute. I've never seen God, and yet I have never doubted the existence of a higher power, however you refer to that higher power. And so I had to start looking at that a little differently. And interestingly, it's sort of like the old, it's now become old, adage or cliche. If you think about something, you'll start seeing it everywhere. Like if you think about a Honda Accord, all of a sudden you'll start seeing Honda Accord. Do they make Honda Accords anymore? I don't know.
I think so.
You'll start
yes.
seeing it everywhere. Yeah, I don't know. But it's the same. It's the same deal.
Oh, I love all this. All right. Well, the premise of what I like to talk about is time management, productivity. We do that a lot on this show. And these are two concepts I think you absolutely need when you're writing a book, because in my honest opinion and from my own experience, there comes a time when you're writing that book where the excitement wears off a little bit and shit gets hard. So you need that organization, that accountability to often complete this work of art you were once so passionate about that maybe you're not feeling so motivated to do. So what's your advice when it comes to this? You mentioned a coach, which I think is a fabulous idea. Tell us more about your thoughts.
When you run into that wall of, I'm just not really feeling it, I don't know, I need to take a break. First of all, you're not feeling it. You're afraid of something. You're procrastinating because all of a sudden you've gotten a certain level of momentum and excitement. And then whether you can call them what they are or not, the fears come in that say, but who's going to read this? Like, who cares? Why am I investing so much time in this? What if I put this out and so gets mad? Or what if it ruins me in some way? What if it weakens my brand? If you already have a platform of some sort, maybe I shouldn't talk about my children. All these things happen, and inevitably the result is the same. I'll get back to it in a month. I'll get back to it when the kids are back in school. The only way to push through that is to push through it. And I wish that there were, I'm working on book 6 and 7 right now, and I still have that problem. This is not something that is a beginner thing. This is not something that only first-time authors experience. It happens over and over again. And if you're honest with yourself, if I'm honest with myself, it happens in other areas of my life too. So once you can start to see those patterns, you realize that the person, the thing standing between you and whatever is you. So you have to push through it. And people do that differently though. For some people, they force it. So they force themselves to get their butt in the chair every day at 7 a.m. I have a client right now who forces herself to set her alarm for 4 a.m. and she writes from 4 to 5. There is no way in hell, Marissa, if I wrote from 4 to 5 a.m., it would be I wouldn't even understand what I was writing. Like, I'm so non-functional before 9 a.m. It's not even funny. But that's what she does. And that's what works for her. That's when the house is quiet. That's when she can get comfortable with her thoughts. For some people, I say, get in the car, go for a drive, go for a walk, because get in the shower, which sounds weird, but how many of us have great thoughts? And because you're not
best ideas,
the best ideas. I know,
yes.
Because you're not trying. Like it's sort of like you just have to relax in order for the stuff to, it's like the thoughts in your head are all just like, they're as tight as your muscles are. And if you just relax and they just kind of start to like come out of you and you're like, oh, okay. So sometimes it's listening to music. I have a lot of people who will just put on a playlist. Sometimes they're walking too. They're at the gym. I'm not at the gym, but whatever whatever they're doing, right? And an idea will come to them. Take the idea and go somewhere with it. So even if you get in the car and you turn on your voice memo and you just bleh, everything you're thinking about that idea, edit it later, hone it later. Don't worry about it. Forget about your grammar, your spell. That's another thing that stops people is they're like, I don't know if this sentence is perfectly poetic. I'm sure it's not. So just who cares? Like that's why you will, if I have anything to say about it, you will hire an editor at the end because no matter how good you are, even if you're a New York Times bestselling author 10 times over, you need an editor. But that's what their job is to help you hone. What an editor can't do is get the material out of your head and onto the paper because they can't yet get into your head. I'm allergic to the words hustle. I'm getting allergic to the word discipline. Sometimes those words are delivered like you have to have this. You're not going to be successful unless you hustle. And you got to hustle like me. Not me, Liz, but like whoever's speaking. And the way I hustle is I work from 4 a.m. to 2 a.m. all day, every day. And that's the only way you're going to get there. And I think in many cases, you ultimately see those people burn out badly. And they need other people to be on the track with them to feel validated in the choices that they're making because they know they're not healthy and they know they're not. And that's not everyone. Of course, there are plenty of people who, when they're younger, I mean, I'm 48 years old. I am not working and I'll blame, longevity all day. Like I'm not getting up at 4 a.m. It's not happening. I recently dog sat for someone and the dog woke up at like 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. needing to go out. And I thought, I'm done with these days. I did this for a long time with babies and no, I will not be getting a puppy. And I immediately texted my youngest daughter because I told her I was going to get a Great Dane. And I said, you win. I am not getting a puppy. She said, thank God. So, if she loves dogs, but she just knows what would have gone down if I had she knows she would have been taking care of the dog. She's 13. So that's really, I wish that I had a magic answer to that question, Marissa, of like, well, here's what you can do. And I think there is a magic answer, which is you got to push through it. And there are a lot of different ways to do that. But the fact of the matter is you got to take one step. And so when I talk to clients who have a word count goal, say someone sets a word count goal of 2,500 words a day, and I'll check in with them and say, how many words did you write today? 0. Wait a minute. What happened? Well, my day got away from me and Johnny got sick and this happened and that happened. I didn't write. I'm like, why didn't you just write 10? Well, I don't want to write 10. That wasn't my goal. My goal was 2,500, but 10 is better than 0. So move the needle one tick. It can be one word. It can be one task. If we're talking about being an entrepreneur, a business owner, it can be one email that you send, one phone call that you make, one task you cross off your to-do list. Don't look at it like, well, I failed if I didn't meet the ultimate goal, whatever that was, because especially as moms, dude, shit is going to come up.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, material is going to present itself and stuff is going to happen that you can't even imagine, which by the way, is another great tip. Just pay attention to the world around you. It is full of material. So whether you're talking to your audience, whether your book is intended to talk about recovering from one thing or another, or building a business, or dating, finding a great relationship, whatever it is, I promise the material is presenting itself to you on an hour by hour basis. You just have to start looking at what is being presented to you differently, whether it's your Facebook feed, the billboard on the road, the song that comes on the radio, the person you stand behind in Starbucks. It's all there.
Yes, I love that advice. It's not all or nothing, you guys. It's not all or nothing. It's baby steps. Baby steps get you to the end result. That's what it is. And it's so true. Mom life is so unpredictable. You're going to plan your best plan on any given day. And chances are it's going to go to shit. And that's okay. And that's okay. You can recover. You can recover from it and still get somewhere. So don't let it get the best of you. Okay, we are going to move on now to our lightning round where I like to ask some random, just for fun type questions so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. These are super fun and easy. So are you ready?
Sure.
All right. What is your go-to get shit done song?
Oh, God. Anything by Eminem.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love Eminem. I think he's brilliant. I really do. Yeah.
All right.
So that's what I would say. Or, I mean, Don't Stop Believing by Journey, but, you know, that's everybody's song. But I still love it. But yeah.
It's still a good one. It's still
Eminem and I are like this. That's
nice.
A tongue twister.
Okay. Yeah.
Next.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm a huge introvert.
Okay. If you could go on vacation tomorrow anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
I have a list right now of all the places that I want to go. And so if I had to pick one, I think it would be Sardinia, Italy, if I'm saying that properly. They have the largest number of centenarians in the world. And I just want to be on those cobblestone streets around these people who have lived these rich lives. And I just want to observe them and talk to them in my non-Italian skill with my no Italian. I can say ciao and that's about it.
I'll teach you some Italian. It's my first language.
Stop!
It was. Yes.
See? These are those moments where I'm like,
the universe brought us together.
I know. This is cool. Will you come to Italy with me?
Absolutely.
Okay, done.
All right. Okay. What's your guilty pleasure TV show?
I just finished it, but right now it was the latest was Hacks on HBO. Absolutely brilliant.
Ooh, I haven't seen that.
Absolutely. Gene Smart, absolutely brilliant.
All right. Nail salon, hair salon, or spa, you can only pick one to visit for the rest of your life. Which one is it?
Oh, definitely hair salon.
All right. And what's your favorite app? Like, what's one app you can't live without?
This is embarrassing. Starbucks. For real. Like, I could show you. You know how, I don't know if you have an iPhone, but on the iPhone, you can have 4 apps down at the very bottom. They're like your primary apps. And one of mine is the Starbucks app.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah, it is
Thanks
what it is.
for sharing with us.
Thanks for asking.
All right. Before we end this episode, which, by the way, I don't want to end, but I do have to wrap it up, please tell our listeners where they can find you.
At Starbucks, or any indie coffee shop in the Valley, which I realize Starbucks is not an indie coffee shop, but nevertheless, my website, elizabethlyons.com, has a link to everything. So that'll link you out to my social media. It will link you to Publish a Profitable Book, which is the DIY division of Finn-Phyllis Press. And it will also link you to Finn-Phyllis Press, which is my publishing house.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you again, Liz, for being here. This was so fun.
Oh, thank you so much for having me and compelling me to dry my hair.
You've been listening to the Mama Work It podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and would love if you could take a quick minute to leave me a review on whichever platform you're listening from, and maybe even send a note to a fellow mama friend recommending it. Reviews and recs help this podcast grow and reach more like-minded, awesome moms. And if you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click that button so we can stay in touch, girl. By the way, if you haven't checked out the Mama Work It website, please do. There are lots of free resources and great articles there that can help you with the juggle of work life, mom life, wife life, fill in the blank life. So head on over. Thanks again for being part of the tribe. I'll see you soon, but in the meantime, keep on working it, mama.